Hi, I'm Steve Callaway, Hillsboro Mayor, and welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. You know, we take it for granted, but housing is so much more than just a roof and walls. Housing is stability, it's safety, and it's rest. Housing is essential to our physical and mental health and to our children's development. And yet the cost of this basic need is simply too much for so many in our community, in our region, and actually across our country. And that's why today's conversation about affordable housing is so important. We'll be talking about affordable housing in Hillsboro with champions and experts of the subject. And I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. We have Erica Calderon, who is the Director of Housing for Bienestar here in Hillsboro. We have Steve Messinetti, who's the President and CEO of Habitat for Humanity in our Portland region, and Chris Hartye, who is a Senior Project Manager for the City of Hillsboro, focusing on affordable housing. Thank you all for being here today. It's great to have you with me. And so I want to start off because affordable housing is a term that we hear often. But what does affordable housing mean, in the industry? What does it mean to you when you hear those two words?
For me, affordable housing means having a place or a safe place to live, where people desire to live and where they want to be, and they can send their children to school.
Yeah. I guess I would say that everyone deserves a safe and healthy place to live on terms that they can afford to pay. And too many of our neighbors are unfortunately paying too much for their housing. It's supposed to be less than 30% of your income in order to have enough for other basic life necessities. And when they don't, that means they're having to choose between paying the rent or taking their kids to the doctor or putting food on the table even. Decisions nobody should have to make.
Or potentially living in a neighborhood that doesn't provide the safety and security, that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Chris.
I agree with both comments. A safe, healthy place to call home where you don't have to sacrifice critical things like health care, child care, food, etc. And I just think about the challenges nowadays with the housing costs rising so much and income levels really not keeping pace. So that's a lot of the challenge ahead of us.
And that's not just the cost of buying a house with a larger house payment, but also just the cost of rent that goes up every year, for folks who rent their homes. And, as we think about those who are needing affordable housing, housing that doesn't become burdensome on their income levels. These are people we know, family members, people we work with, people we see, around our community. And so what are the needs that specifically you are hearing, from your clients, if you will, and also from community members? And, while we're focusing on Hillsboro, you work, in Western Washington County in the Portland region. So, what are you hearing all around?
We're hearing that there needs to be more units. There need to be larger units and matching families that are living in this geographical area. I think that, the more that we hear, where the affordable housing projects at, geography matters. They want to be, within their school districts, good school districts, and at the same time, they want to be close to where their employment is. But I think the biggest thing that I hear is that, they want to get in, they need access to them faster, and more importantly, they need larger units that luckily, working at Bienestar, we are providing, but not enough and not fast enough.
Good, thanks. Steve.
Yeah, at Habitat, we're hearing the same thing. Families need family-size homes for families that need 3, 4, even 5-bedroom homes. Also families in need of accessible homes for families that have a family member with a disability. And unfortunately, those are the homes that we're seeing very little get built by the market. It used to be in the 80s, half of the homes that got built by the market were these entry-level family homes. Now, less than 1 in 10 is an entry-level home. So we need housing of all types, but we especially need those entry-level homes for families.
And, and without those entry-level homes and affordable homes, it's hard for people to move up, to kind of that next level home and then open up those entry-level homes to a new generation of first-time home buyers at a more accessible and affordable price.
Yeah, that's right. And it also puts, because people then are stuck renting, which puts pressure on the rental market, which causes our rents to go up even more. So it's a cycle that.
Well, Chris, we have more than 2,500 regulated housing units here in Hillsboro, with a need for more, clear, as we've heard. The pace of the work, though, doesn't lend itself to quick fixes. Can you kind of explain to us or share with us some of the process, that the city goes through, in developing or helping being a partner in the development of some of these projects?
Sure, that's right. The construction of new affordable housing definitely takes time. It can take at least 3 years from a project's conception through development, construction, lease up, and that's if things go well. There are many challenges to the development of affordable housing. One of the key ones is the funding sources. Our development partners are juggling many different funding sources with different requirements, and that adds a lot of complexities. Plus, they are also subject to market forces in terms of interest rates and with construction loans and things like that. So a lot of challenges, but having said that, Hillsboro does have over 300 units, affordable units in the development pipeline, happy to say, and that is thanks to our development partners, and I know that we'll be talking about several of those projects today.
So, a typical developer, and I think back to my years on planning commission, but a typical developer has one lending partner. And is that the case with some of the projects that we put together, or is that part of what complicates it? Because, there's more regulations, more partners, more moving pieces, more dependent variables, and that kind of thing.
That's right, Mayor, and I ask Erica and Steve to speak to this as well, but rather than market rate housing, which is very much kind of a conventional financing model, nonprofits especially have to cobble together many different funding sources, a lot of which have a lot of regulation and a lot of requirements because it's public funding. So I'll leave it at that and maybe ask Erica and Steve to weigh in.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think on one project, I currently have 4 funding sources, and on another project, I have close to 9. Wow. And the one that's close to 9 is less units, but the reason is when you're building affordable housing, you really want to do informative design and build for the correct population. And that takes more expertise, it takes time, but from an owner-operator position, we also want that building to last as long as it can. So we're trying to get some material that are higher ends, such as countertops, bathroom countertops as well, efficient HVAC systems. There's a lot of things. Our area is changing in a lot of ways. The climate changes in certain areas. So like other units that don't have air conditioning, we're trying to put those into newer units for the overall well-being, safety and healthy and livability for our residents. So with that said, what Chris was saying, costs go up on construction, interest rates right now are going up, things are getting more expensive, but we're trying to build sophisticated homes for the residents here in Washington County. So that means we often need to find more funders to come in and help us achieve our vision.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, that's right. I'd say, Habitat's doing homeownership projects, so it's a little less complex. We don't have 9 sources, but usually still 3 or 4. And then we also go out to the community and fill the gap with fundraising as well.
And so there's, and fundraising, public support, is critically important from foundation donors, from business donors, as well as individual and private donors. And we also have the city that steps in with gap funding, so that when costs go up, when interest rates go up, and all of a sudden what penciled out before doesn't, then that's when the city will also come through with additional support, sometimes in the form then of gap funding. You talked about, Erica, just the projects that you're building in, and you alluded to one, that was designed to meet the needs of those who are going to live there, and that was one of the things that kind of fascinated me with Nueva Esperanza. Trying to make it, culturally sensitive, to the traditions and whatnot of those who are going to be living there. And maybe, you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I'm a big champion for not just, designing the same thing over and over. I like to get informative design from the folks that have lived in affordable housing, from our residents that currently live in affordable housing. And, sometimes we just see little tiny changes, for example, like refrigerators. For some reason, we put in tinier refrigerators for families, and they often break time and time again. So that's an easy design implementation that we're doing in our newer projects. We're needing bigger refrigerators. But specifically for the Latinx population, we know that they want bigger units. We did lots of community engagement to say, what is it about this project that would excite you to come live here? And they wanted bigger bedrooms for their families. They're saying that, they're teenagers, that's where they're seeing them spend the most amount of time right now. And if they have smaller bedrooms, then they're going to be loitering around. So we made that change. We also did several partnerships within Washington County because Bienestar doesn't have the expertise in all types of populations that live here currently in Washington County. So one example, we reached out to the Somali Empowerment Circle, and I learned through a quick conversation that they are not fans of open kitchen design. And what that means is that if your living room, there is no partition between or a wall between the living room and the kitchen. And due to their culture and specifics, they really desired that. And so it just made me learn as a developer, not just because you build it, will they come? We want to be building homes for them to feel like they're at home and they're not trying to, spend extra funding or looking for extra items to kind of jimmy rig their brand new affordable housing apartments. So,
and that was one of the things that I noticed when I would do home visits as a principal is how different living space was utilized or arranged. And it was very clear, that there are important traditional and cultural, arrangements that, that, people incorporated. And it drives home the point that it's very important and necessary to, make sure that that's incorporated just so that people can feel like, yes, this truly is my home and not just a place where I'm living. So, tell us a little bit more then about Bienestar and the background and how long it's been around, if you would.
Yeah, we're a 42-year-old organization, and we launched in 1981, specifically in the city of Forest Grove. Bienestar found that there was a need to help the farm workers, who the majority were Latinx, back in the 80s, find safe and affordable and stable housing. A lot of the folks that were living in Forest Grove area migrated from areas such as Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, and they were painted a picture of move up to Oregon and help us in the agricultural fields. And in return, you're going to live in these migrant homes, but they were painted to them as summer camp, like it was going to be fun to come. And then as I've learned, this story went that they didn't have in-house plumbing, they didn't have running water, and there are still a large community that lives here that remembers those days. This happened in the 50s, the migration did. And so in the 80s is when Bienestar formed and decided that we were going to go ahead and take the lead as developers and start developing safe, affordable housing for that population in this community.
Excellent. Thank you.
Since then, we've continued to do so.
Great. And now it has expanded beyond Forest Grove and Cornelius into Hillsboro, parts of unincorporated Washington County as well.
Yeah, it is. And we have a one-off in Scappoose.
Oh,
and so,
nice.
we're trying to look at new communities that where we can provide the same type of services and hopefully build more affordable housing and keep them safe.
Excellent. We're familiar with Habitat, for Humanity through the incredible work of President Carter. But at a local level, share with us, share with us about Habitat for Humanity throughout the Portland region.
Sure, yeah. Well, I heard 1981 was a good year in our region. That's when Habitat got started here as well. And over the years, we actually had a Habitat group in Portland, in Hillsboro, in Beaverton, and another one in Gresham. And then over time, it just made sense to combine our efforts to become a larger regional, more efficient organization, which we have now as Habitat Portland Region. And our main focus is helping people to buy their first home, families that have low incomes that can't afford a home otherwise, and also help folks access an affordable mortgage that will work for their families. And then something most folks don't know about Habitat is we also have a program that provides critical home repairs for families, many seniors, whether that's replacing an entire roof on a home or putting a wheelchair ramp in to access a home so if somebody can stay in place and avoid displacement. And we set that up in a sliding scale way so it's affordable to any income level.
And with Habitat, we're familiar with the sweat equity. There's a part of the home purchasing and the building, but as a senior, then to be able just to have something replaced or fixed, the roof replaced, a ramp put in, where the sweat equity is not up to you, really does help maintain that independence and that dignity for folks as we age in place. Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you. Chris, Nueva Esperanza is the first Metro bond, or Metro funded, project that we have done. Can you discuss a little bit about, our partnership with Metro?
Sure. Hillsboro is an implementing jurisdiction of the Metro Regional Housing Bond. Hillsboro has about $41 million allocated from that regional measure. And we've done several RFPs, requests for proposals for affordable housing for utilization of those funds. And our first RFP was at 53rd Avenue in Hidden Creek. And the city had a property that we owned there that the Parks Department had acquired, and City Council directed staff to repurpose that for affordable housing. So our RFP not only included Metro bond funds, but also 6 acres of property at 53rd Avenue in Hidden Creek, right across the street from the new community center there. And Bienestar and Housing Development Center were awarded that RFP, that project. They've built a fantastic project in Nueva Esperanza that you heard a little bit about, 150 units and of housing that is 3-4 bedrooms, the critical larger size units that we know we need in this community. And it's a great project. So that's one of about 3 or 4 projects that we'll have that include Metro bond funding.
Nice. You mentioned, the farm worker housing, and when I was principal at North Plains Elementary School, we had some of our families who lived in the farm worker camps in those cinder block buildings. And when one of the camps was being scraped and removed for housing, in a new little subdivision, I went out with a friend and we collected a few of the pieces, and to me it was just a reminder of the homes, that kids came from, and the incredible work and sacrifice that was made by parents to help their children move forward. And, and I shared that story and, gave, one of the cinder block pieces. And I'm excited that it will be incorporated, in Nueva Esperanza, which, by the way, translated means
New hope.
New hope, which is so powerful, because with housing comes dignity and a new and truly a new hope. So Nueva Esperanza already has families living, and will it be full? Will there be a waiting list, for units?
Yeah, we opened up waiting list in February,
Okay.
and currently the waiting list is almost to 400 families that have already applied.
Wow.
And our team is working as fast as we can. So it is a phased project. The first 48 units, like you mentioned, are leased up, and if you drive by Nueva Esperanza, you're going to see families living there, and there's a whole different side that is still under construction. And so we are hoping that second phase will be turned over to us at least for 3 buildings at the end of this month.
Good.
So we will be moving in more families in August, and then the last phase will come online in October, and then the rest of the 150 families will be in. So, yeah.
Very good. And how do you market to, to the potential residents?
We've been very intentional with our partners and very respectful of who's already doing that work here in specifically Hillsboro, but even broader Washington County. So we have currently, I want to say, like 5 partners who came out and engaged in Nueva Esperanza before there was a Nueva Esperanza that you could physically see. And we helped them understand what the process was going to be, what the paperwork looked like, when applications were coming out. But the majority of it's been word of mouth, and it's been through the partnerships that we have formed and that have been helping, in return, have been informing us what the needs are of the population. So
very good. Well, Steve, so we've got a few projects with Habitat taking place in Hillsboro now. How many townhouses are currently being built?
Yeah, so we have 26 homes getting built in 2 different subdivisions.
Okay.
So we've got 8 homes that are almost complete. We'll call it Alder Commons, which is over by Chute Park Library and the Aquatic Center. And those families are identified. We're just about done. They'll be moving in this summer. And then there's 18 homes on a property that we were able to work in partnership with the city on Century as part of the Century extension there, where we have 18 townhomes getting built. 14 of them will be 4-bedroom homes, so for homes for larger families.
Good.
4 of them will be fully accessible homes, single-story homes for families that have a family member with a disability. So really excited to be in that neighborhood, and going to be just breaking ground. We've broken ground, we built the roads and sidewalks. We're going to be starting to build homes in the coming months.
Good. So hundreds of families on the waiting list at Nueva Esperanza. What kind of demand do you see for, the houses, that Habitat is producing?
Sure, yeah, really high as well. Every time we open up selection, which we do about every 6 months for a project, we have over 1,000 households apply for those 20, 30 homes that we're about to start building. So kind of an overwhelming number at this point.
Yeah. And to those who are on waiting lists, to those who apply, and again, I think of 1,000 people applying and 20 people, it's it's life-changing for those 20.
Yep.
But what's the message that we need to communicate to those who are waiting and didn't get picked?
Yeah, don't give up, keep trying. We're doing everything we can to produce more units to further meet the need, and to really prioritize those who need it most. So larger families with kids, people with disabilities, those who can't access a housing by any other means.
Good. So last question, we'll start with Chris and come down. And that is when, we've talked about affordable housing, but what's one message, what's one key takeaway, that you might have for us, and maybe it's how, where to get information, maybe it's how to support, financially, the work, or volunteer to support the work, as a government entity, what is it, Chris, that we want to make sure that people understand about affordable housing with Hillsboro?
Sure. Just want to pass along that typically cities in Oregon do not own, operate, or develop affordable housing. It's our nonprofit development partners like Habitat and Bienestar that do that heavy lifting. They construct the housing, they own and operate the housing. The city's role is to play a support role in that and to facilitate development of new regulated affordable housing. And as we've talked about today, we do that through donations of property. We do that through property tax exemptions for regulated affordable housing. We do that through gap financing, like with the Metro bond. But we are very reliant as government, I think at all levels, to the nonprofit and for-profit developers and sponsors that really produce the housing. So we're very grateful to have partners like Erica and Steve.
Thank you.
That's great. I guess I would say Homeownership is a game changer. We see this again and again, that once a family, especially a family with low income, has a stable, affordable place to live, kids start doing better at school, their parents start doing better at work, the entire family is healthier and happier. And it's so critical to having that long-term stability, financial stability for a family. My family bought our first home here 20 years ago. And if we were to rent that same home today, we'd pay twice what we pay in our current mortgage. So that's kind of the math in terms of how it works for a family. If they're stuck in the rental market, rents are going to keep going up. If they can get into that stable home that they own, it really changes their trajectory in life.
And it provides that home equity, which then makes money available for other things such as education or just medical emergencies or something like that, where you're not having to fall farther behind.
That's right.
So you're able to tap into it. Excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add, I think what I've heard a lot 3 years ago was, rejection's hard, and people have been rejected from affordable housing in the past. And what I'm here to let the public know now is we've had a lot of resources come down the pipeline within the last couple of years, and we've been able to staff up in many ways that organizations haven't in the past. And what I mean by that, currently Bienestar specifically has what are called community connectors, and they're there to educate the general public of what the regulations are, or what the requirements are to live in affordable housing, and possibly even explain why they could have been denied in the past. So I would agree with Steve. Don't give up. Come see us. We're building as fast as we can, and we want to be able to have a second chance on getting somebody in.
Very good. Thank you. And so Bienestar has their website, so does Habitat for Humanity. There's information about Hillsboro's affordable housing projects on our website as well. And so thank you all for coming, and thank you also just for your passion and your service to our community. And reminding folks that even though they may be marginalized, they're not forgotten. And that is an incredibly important message to send. So thank you so very, very much for being here today and for your commitment to serving those in the shadows. Appreciate that a great deal.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for joining us on another edition of Community Conversations. We hope that you have a great day, and we look forward to having you back with us next time.